Something very dangerous is happening in the Asia-Pacific, and the world hasn't even noticed yet. While the US is stuck in a war with Iran and the crisis in the Strait of Hormuz, China has quietly moved into action thousands of miles away. It launched a cunning plan to encircle and invade Taiwan, closing off a 73,000-kilometer airspace for 40 days. That same week, it hosted Taiwan's opposition leader in Beijing and spoke of peace. China was quietly getting closer to getting what it wants. In the absence of the US, this might have been the ideal time for Xi to launch this encirclement from both inside and outside. Peace at the table, warplanes in the sky, Japan in the crosshairs, a four-pronged operation. However, in the US's absence, Japan's response was harsh. For the first time in history, it deployed missiles capable of striking Shanghai. Now, the regional balance of power and the Taiwan Strait equation are on the verge of becoming the eye of a far more dangerous global storm. It all started at the end of March 2026. On March 27th, China closed 73,000 kilometers of airspace from off the coast of Shanghai to the Yellow Sea. The fact that this closed area was larger than Taiwan's main island itself showed this was beyond an ordinary military exercise. A normal military exercise lasts a few days and operates at specific altitudes, but the notices being valid until May 6th, a full 40 days, signaled an extraordinary operational preparation. A restriction extending from the sea surface to unlimited altitude has the capacity to conceal military activities ranging from ballistic missile tests to long-range aerial bombardment rehearsals. Exactly as this military blockade rehearsal locked the skies, Beijing played an entirely different card on the diplomatic stage. On April 10th, KMT Chairman Cheng Li-wun met with Xi Jinping at the Great Hall of the People, the first meeting between a Taiwan opposition leader and the Chinese head of state in a decade. While Xi presented the reunification argument with his "people on both sides of the Taiwan Strait are the same Chinese nation" rhetoric, calling the visit a peace mission, aims to deepen the fault lines in Taiwan's domestic politics. Immediately after the meeting, China announcing 10 new economic improvement packages for Taiwan is part of the tactic of rewarding the opposition and isolating the ruling DPP in the public eye. Regional military planning circles assess this as the PLA testing its capacity for sustained long-term operations. Being able to close an area twice the size of Taiwan to air traffic for 40 days means measuring the ability of air defense systems, radar networks, and air assets to operate in an integrated, uninterrupted manner. Unlike the brief shows of force in 2022, this action carries the potential of being a rehearsal for an actual blockade, the first step of a logistic strangulation scenario. When you read these two moves separately, one looks like military provocation, the other like diplomatic outreach. But read them together, and China's classic united front strategy emerges. KMT wants dialogue, DPP rejects it as a trap. This crack is China's most valuable tool, and China is making these moves without declaring war. Both paths lead to Beijing. The sharpest response to China's silent move came from Japan, and it materialized not just in rhetoric, but in weapons. In late March 2026, Japan deployed Type 12 and Type 25 long-range missiles at Camp Kangun in Kumamoto. These missiles aren't just defensive, they bring China's eastern coastline directly into range. The Type 25's range can reach Shanghai, China's most populous city and economic heart. For the first time in Japan's history, counter-strike capability has entered official doctrine. The limits of the pacifist constitution are being pushed. By 2030 to 2031, these missiles are plans to spread along the Ryukyu Islands chain all the way to Yonaguni. If realized, Japan's southwestern islands will transform into a missile shield, threatening China's entire eastern coastline. This line directly threatens China's naval routes to the Pacific. We're not saying Japan is preparing for war, but it wants to be ready for war, and missiles that can reach Shanghai are the most concrete proof of that intent. But missiles are only part of the story. Prime Minister Takaichi's statement that a Taiwan contingency crisis is an existential threat for Japan marks the most radical breaking point in post-World War II security doctrine. If Taiwan falls, Japan's southwestern islands enter China's military range. Tokyo did the math and saw the result. Taiwan falling means Japan's defense depth is cut in half. In this context, Japan took another step in March 2026. In its diplomatic blue book, it downgraded China from one of the most important bilateral relationships to important neighboring country. In diplomatic jargon, this is a slap, an open message to Beijing. We no longer see you as a strategic partner. Beijing's reaction was harsh. It issued a travel warning for Chinese citizens to Japan and applied diplomatic pressure. But Tokyo didn't step back. It escalated. On April 1st, Japan published a joint statement with France, emphasizing stability in the Taiwan Strait. The first time a European country explicitly referenced the Taiwan Strait alongside Japan. This statement is a quiet earthquake. The Taiwan issue is no longer just an Asia-Pacific problem, but a global security agenda item. Europe's involvement in this issue complicates Beijing's calculations. China must now contend not just with the US and Japan, but potentially with Europe as well. The Maritime Self-Defense Force has undergone its most comprehensive reforms since World War II. Fleet Escort Force converted to Fleet Surface Force, information warfare and amphibious warfare groups established. Amphibious warfare, defense against island landing operations. Japan knows whose islands might face a landing operation. The Senkaku Islands are already a friction point with China. Chinese Coast Guard ships regularly patrol around Senkaku, and Japan responds by sending its own ships every time. These reciprocal patrols could turn into a clash at any moment, and China's airspace restriction is near this area. The geography of the 73,000-kilometer restriction zone is no coincidence. It extends precisely into the operational area of Japan's southwestern islands and the U.S. Kadena base on Okinawa. Kadena is the U.S.'s largest airbase in the Pacific. Aircraft launching from here are critical in the first hours of a Taiwan scenario. China's message? I can establish control in this area whenever I want. I can cut your access routes. Japan's answer? Then we'll bring your coastline into our range. This isn't a balance, it's an escalation spiral. Both sides are trying to deter the other's capacity while simultaneously increasing their own. South Korea is in a different equation, but no less concerned. The restriction covers the Yellow Sea, affecting routes to Seoul. China's strong economic ties with Seoul prevent it from taking an open stance. But behind the scenes, defense cooperation with Japan is rapidly growing. These developments make regional alliances like Quad and AUKUS even more critical. Coordination between the US, Japan, Australia, and India is no longer theoretical debate, it's operational necessity. China's every move strengthens these alliances. Perhaps the most important consequence Beijing didn't account for. Now, stop and look at the big picture. Why are all these moves happening right now? The US is fighting Iran. Aircraft carriers are at Hormuz. 50,000 troops are in the Middle East. Intelligence is focused on Islamabad. And at this exact moment, when it can't focus on Taiwan, China moves. No analyst is calling this a coincidence. In February 2026, the US and Israel attacked Iran. Iran closed Hormuz. A fifth of the world's oil was cut overnight. 2 US Navy carrier strike groups were deployed to the Middle East. These ships normally serve as deterrence against China in the Pacific. Now they're at Hormuz, and a vacuum has formed in the Indo-Pacific. This vacuum isn't just military. It has diplomatic and intelligence dimensions too. Over 50,000 U.S. troops are occupied with the Iran operation. NOTAMs of Shanghai, advancing silently inside the noise. China's favorite tactic. The 73,000-kilometer area isn't just an exercise zone. It's testing how the US and allies would access the region in a Taiwan scenario. Kadena Base is directly affected. Being able to cut this access route is a strategic advantage for China. The 40-day duration is an operational endurance test, measuring how long they can maintain air superiority in an actual conflict. This isn't just a military capacity test, but a logistics capacity test. 40 days of fuel, ammunition, personnel rotation, maintenance, and repair. If they pass this test, the next step could be much bolder. And one more reality. Taiwan accounts for over 90% of the world's advanced chip production. Any instability in the strait paralyzes the global technology supply chain. China uses this as a double-edged weapon, but direct invasion would destroy the factories. That's why siege is preferred. Control without damaging the factories. That's China's real objective. The historical line shows escalation, and with each step, China grows bolder, the world grows quieter. In 1996, China tested missiles. The US came with 2 carriers. China backed down. In 2022, post-Pelosi exercises encircled the island. This time, China didn't back down. It declared the new normal. The world condemned but didn't intervene. In 2026, a 40-day silent closure without even providing an explanation, staying below the war threshold at the moment the rival is most occupied. The bar rises with every crisis, and each time the response grows weaker. The most dangerous aspect of this dynamic is normalization. The 2022 exercises created shock from world leaders to the UN. Everyone reacted. Now, the 73,000-kilometer closure was a few days of news in global media and passed. The Iran war is absorbing all attention. China masterfully manages this attention economy, advancing a bit more with each move, raising the reaction threshold each time. What's a crisis the first time becomes concerned the second time, and normal the third time. And nobody intervenes against what's become normal. At the end of this normalization process, Taiwan could find itself effectively under siege without a single shot fired, a single ship sunk, a single ultimatum delivered. Taiwan could wake up one morning to find its surroundings completely under control and that nobody intervened because the process will have advanced so slowly that every individual step stayed below the crisis threshold. And China's patience appears unlimited. But unlimited patience is one of the most dangerous weapons of all. While the US was fighting Iran, China quietly made its move. China isn't invading, it's encircling, advancing not with weapons, but with patience, not with threats, but with ambiguity, not with war, but with gray zone operations. Japan saw this and delivered the sharpest military response in its history. The missiles reaching Shanghai are the product of this calculation. But with every escalation, the world reacts a little less, and that's exactly what Beijing wants. The question is no longer, will China intervene in Taiwan? It's which step will cross the war threshold? And where that threshold lies, nobody knows. Perhaps not even China. So, what are your thoughts on this topic? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to stay updated on PPR Global's new analyses. Thank you for choosing.